Arteta! What a strike! What a screamer! Zola! And a fantastic goal! Arsenal back in it! And here's Limpar, lines it up, finds the net. Arsenal in front.
What do you call 180 minutes against BATE Borisov without a goal from open play? Progression to the round of 16. This is the Arsenal Vision post-match podcast. My name is Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. That's right. It doesn't matter how you get there, just that you get there. Survive in advance. This is knockout football, baby. And we are through. We have beat the Borisov tractor and farmers team, or whatever BATE stands for, and can't be arsed to look it up right now. But yeah, we did that. We moved on. A glorious victory at home and a clean sheet, thanks in part to Lichtsteiner clearing one off the line, but we'll get to all that. A couple of announcements to tell you about, but before I tell you about those, let's introduce Tim. You can find him on Twitter at Stilberto. Hello, Tim.
Hello there.
And Clive. You can find him on Twitter at ClivePAFC. Hello, Clive.
Hello.
Yeah, you'll be hearing about lingerie down the road. You may, in fact, be hearing about razors, hairy razors, depending on where you live in the world, and we're thrilled to have them on board, so thank you to them, and I hope that you will use them to shave before putting on your intimates from the enclosed. That's how that works. Over on Patreon, we have the Discord chat up and running. Lots of good people in it. Was chatting with Tim and Clive about it beforehand. We're really enjoying it. I know Gunner Blog was on there earlier, and we were having a chat with him, and we'd love to have you on there. Scott's posting radars, and there's chat for match day chat and all kinds of stuff. It's just more like a rolling chat instead of 18 parallel arguments of people calling each other names on Twitter. So really your choice, however you want to do it. That's over on Patreon. If you don't want to do it, though, we love you and we appreciate you for being here regardless. And of course, we're just thrilled to be able to talk to you about what was a scintillating victory over BATE Borisov. So I have to admit, I wasn't sure what to expect from Emery, but the noises in the week suggested that it might happen, and it did indeed happen. Mesut Ozil, as I live and breathe, was on the pitch at the Emirates. Tim, were you surprised that Ozil started? And in general, were you kind of happy to see the back three scrapped in favor of a slightly more attacking lineup?
I wasn't at all surprised to see Ozil start. He started the last home game. He started at home to Burnley. I think the only home game he hasn't started recently was Man United, and so I think there is a bit of a pattern in the selection of Mesut Ozil. For me, the headline stopper will be when he's selected from the start away from home. That's when I think you can possibly say, that something might have changed here, but we'll not see that for at least a week and a half until the Spurs game, which I'm certainly won't start because it's Spurs. And he's like really not being picked for that type of game, and I don't see that changing, and I don't think it really should either. So I wasn't at all surprised. It made perfect sense as well. BATE were always going to bank up. And the amount of the reasons to not pick Ozil just don't really apply in this game, I don't think so. It made perfect sense as well. There was no need to play a back three, really. I think a four was always going to be fine. At home, I think you can maybe expect BATE to play the odd long ball and on a bad pitch and try and cause Arsenal a bit of trouble, which they kind of did a couple of times before they scored, and then when they got their goal in the away leg, they shut up shop. But I don't think that was ever going to seriously happen this time. And what we saw as well was that BATE were happy with the margin of the defeat. At 2-0, at 3-0, they made no attempts to try. It's clear that they're, even with the 1-0 first leg win, their stated intention, their obvious intention was to keep it respectable, which they did. They never really, apart from that chance after we went 1-0 up, they never really came out. They never really tried to reverse the tie or anything. So absolutely no need for a back three there, and I thought it was interesting actually, maybe we'll come on to it, that he opted for Monreal instead of Kolasinac in that back four, and what that says about how he sees Kolasinac. It was largely the kind of lineup I expected. I thought he'd go to a back four. I think the back three thing is going to be a feature away from home. I'm not, other than maybe the upcoming United game, I don't think we'll see it too much at the Emirates.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough for me, right? I mean, there were chances early for BATE, and then they really stopped being a force in the game altogether. And certainly I think the goals killed off their impetus. But Clive, I think we should at least touch on, before we get into Ozil's performance and some of the attacking play, the defensive play, because you tweeted something out that I thought was really astute. So there's your one.
Wow.
Just kidding.
Thank you.
I learn quite a lot from you constantly. But, you sort of tweet out that the way we defend is like four individuals, just playing what they see right in front of them, and that there's no coordination. And that struck me as really accurate, because the reason we look so panicked is it always looks like every defender is just reacting to the thing he sees happening in that moment, with no understanding of where his teammates are, position on the pitch, the danger around him. And there were a few really scary moments. And Tim, not to disagree with you, you're right. I think that BATE did stop being a force, but there was also one a little bit later on. I think it was at 3-0, right, where the ball ricocheted around the box quite a bit. And we just kind of kept trying to hack it clear, and it wound up with a really clear chance that Czech stopped. I mean, essentially, it just feels like panic back there. So I wanted to get your thoughts, Clive, on the defending, and even with a team that wasn't really pushing forward to put us under a lot of pressure, why it is that we seem so unsure of ourselves at the back.
Right, so let's talk about this then. So I think it was a couple of days ago, wasn't it an anniversary of the game when we played Real Madrid and Thierry Henry scored that wonderful goal? I think it was couple of days ago.
Yeah, I think it was the 400th anniversary of that, or it certainly feels like it. Anyway.
And there's about a 3-minute video clip out there of that game, and what a wonderful game that was. Look at the players on the pitch, look at the quality of players on the pitch, particularly in the top end of the pitch. In the bottom end of the pitch, I think we had Senderos, I think we had Flamini playing, and we had a few people that maybe not complete Arsenal legends in that team. But, I never would have thought that day that a few years later I would be nervous in a home game versus BATE Borisov, because that's what I was in the first 20 minutes of this game. And then you look at the players on the pitch and you think, okay, maybe a few years ago we didn't have a defensive strategy. I don't think we had an off-the-ball thought. We were all about on the ball. I think we can all say, this year we see a lot more off-the-ball work. We see an emphasis on harder work off the ball, an emphasis on to regaining possession. But then you go to the back four and you look at that back four, and I'm going to go through it one by one, right? So Monreal, again, he plays in his hole. He doesn't progress up the pitch anymore. His legs are going really, really quickly. Really quickly. He is deteriorating very fast. A classic example of a player that should have been sold a year ago, 12 months ago, in last year's January window. He is a problem. People are running past him on the outside, running past him on the inside. So what does that do to Koscielny? Koscielny's best game was against Chelsea when he had the diamond in front of him. He was brilliant. He didn't have to go. Tim made a great point that day on that pod. Didn't have to go dashing and looking around for work. He waited for the work to come to him, and when he does that, he's a very, very good player. The fact he's still our best defender, we all agree, that's an issue, right? Mustafi, who had a statistically quite a good game in this game, but again, he's somebody that plays with blinkers on. He sees what's in front of him, and he goes and gets it. And then if you got 2 or 3 players like that, what they do is they see the game. If they can't go and do work, they don't think, well, I better cover around. I better change my position. They just watch. They watch, and they take too long to recover into space, and they're not as young as they used to be to recover into holes. Lichtsteiner, he's not very quick running backwards, so he wants to get tight. He wants to go and get stuff. Look at the 1-2 against City. He got popped around. He should have stayed in his hole, but I want to go and get someone. I want to go and get myself tight to someone. So he just drifts out. And so you have this imbalance of defenders, aged defenders, that either can't run, can't jump, and then what they're doing is they're looking after themselves. So they're playing as individuals. Now, when the best unit we have, we got a player injured, but the best unit you get is with Socrates and Koscielny, because they sort of team. They play like a team together.
Imagine that.
And and there's somebody there that's dominant, that tells people where to stand, right? And we just haven't got that with this group, and it's a real problem. And it's not about Emery setting up a system, or it's not about what we do in midfield anymore like it used to be when we used to vacate the area. It is purely about the quality of those individuals and how they mesh together, and it is a real problem. And I'm telling you, if we play that back four against Spurs, it's gonna be life threatening for me. I tell you.
Counterpoint. I mean, on the flip side, do we Are we worried? I mean, I realize it's away, but do we think that Spurs are going to carry the threat that BATE had? I just think it's something to consider.
Well, you make a very clear point.
Thank you. As always, I make the points, the cogent points that have people coming back to this podcast. By the way, we will discuss the Rennes draw down the road. I'm saving that because I need to find some tweets to steal as my own ideas about Rennes, who I know very little about. In fact, if you follow me on Twitter, you will have seen my scouting report. Stade Rennes, which I always assumed was where they played because that translates as Stadium Rennes, is actually the name of the club, and they play at a different place that's not called that, which is pretty weird, if you ask me. But apart from those trenchant insights, Tim, I know it's become a meme, but it's a meme because it's a thing. Like, some stereotypes are rooted in fact, and the stereotype of us being a wing team, get it to the wings and cross it team, are rooted in fact. So I thought it was hilarious that the Arsenal social media account on Twitter posted a training video this week that was literally like working on our crosses, and of course they caught a raft of shit for that. And what do you know? Like, watching this game, look, over in the Discord chat, I was kind of joking every time we got it to the wing. I was like, we got it to the wing, hooray! Because like that really does seem to be our prime directive. I mean, is that? Am I overreading this, or does it appear at this point that we have kind of come to be defined in our build-up and in our attack as a team that is looking to overload one or the other wing and cut the ball to the center of the box?
Yeah, absolutely. And this was one of the few games I got in early enough to see the warm up, and that is exactly what they were doing in the warm up. And I'm not usually
the groundskeeper at the Emirates is never going to have to do anything to the middle of the grass in the middle of the pitch. It's going to be pristine.
I mean, they literally and you know, all of this makes sense because we see it on the pitch, right? But they literally lined up in a V. They had like Mkhitaryan. And then they had like Lichtsteiner. One would go on the outside sometimes, one would go on the outside the other, and yeah, they were doing cutbacks, and then like they'd do like one cutback along the floor, and they'd do one in the air. And it's you're right, it's become a meme because we do it a lot. It's actually quite effective in one respect, and you know, like putting Kolasinac through on the overlap, it happens a lot. We kind of managed to get him in those scenarios quite a lot, even though teams must know it's going to happen. They don't always seem to stop it. But I think, and well, first of all, for us, it's pretty much the only thing perhaps we can see in Emery's Arsenal where we look at and think, yeah, that's something that's been worked on in the training ground. It's something identifiable. And by the way, City do it more than we do.
Exactly.
It's their brand.
I said that the halftime show, by the way. That is absolutely correct, and I think they're very, very good at it. Now, I think they have a little bit more variety to what they do, but they also have players that don't make it look as rudimentary. I mean, I think when it's Iwobi and Mkhitaryan out there versus Sterling and Bernardo Silva or Sane and you know, Mahrez, I think it looks different to the eye. You know. Yeah,
and basically with Arsenal, the problem with the Kolasinac thing is it's the only thing, and it's very eye of the needle. It has to be very deliberate, and you have to sit through a lot of goal kicks and throw-ins before it comes off. And then like the cutback, you know, the cutback has to be very precise, and when you don't play Aaron Ramsey, none of those midfielders are going to get in there and make the second. So it's like, you know, it's we can see it, and it's something that, you know, could be successful, but and of course that video goes up in the week, which we all had a good laugh at. But ultimately, that's where all our goals came from. So, you know, it's become like a bit of a brand, and that in itself isn't a problem. It's just, I think people want to see something more as well.
Yeah, and
can I just do a little bit on that video?
Yeah, I'd love for you to do it. So real quick, Clive, can I just ask you, could you do a little bit on that?
Well, I'm just interested in what people saw in that video, right? Because you remember the first leg. Remember we were talking, Elliot, about how we didn't put the ball into those danger areas, didn't put the ball in there. There was crowd scenes developing. We had a discussion about what our forwards do in crowd scenes. And I felt they literally put those bodies there, those cones there, and said, put it in there anyway. And this is what I want you to get used to. We're going to crash the box. Exactly what you spoke about, Elliot. We're going to crash the box. They're going to sit in there. We have to be comfortable running in, creating lines for passing lanes. This is what we need to be working on. I actually thought it was pretty good to see him because it sort of mirrored a lot of what the game did. I know we scored from set pieces, but they were always going to barricade that box. And so that was the only way we were going to score, by running in. And, okay, it would be much easier if Aaron Ramsey was doing it. He's somebody who just loves running in and arriving. So we're asking players that don't really do that, in Iwobi and Mkhitaryan and Ozil, to get closer to those areas and get around our one striker where we didn't have two strikers. And I thought he focused on that. And I thought it was... decent stuff, right?
Yeah, I agree, actually. And again, I listened. I wasn't on the last podcast, but I listened to it and agreed with that. And it's a conversation a mate of mine and I had as well, where saying the same thing that you said, Elliot. Like they looked really stressed when the ball came in the area. Yeah. And it's actually a conversation I had, like, weirdly enough, at the women's game on Wednesday night. Arsenal were playing Yeovil. And I'm not joking. Yeovil played 8 at the back, straight line, 8 across the back, and then they had 2 wingers who also like banked up as well. They, like at times there was a line of 9, right? And Arsenal didn't score in the first half, which is amazing, because Yeovil have conceded like 50 goals and Arsenal have scored about 50. And anyway, it was because it was all too intricate and it was all on the edge of the area, and it was all, let's back to goal, let's try and flick it around the corner, and it wasn't working. And what they did in the second half was like, right, let's start stressing them. And so the first goal was a deflected shot, because someone decided not to try and thread the eye of a needle anymore. And when there's that many bodies in there, you stress them. Then there was a penalty because someone ran at them, and again, it's you create stress in the penalty area, and that's what we didn't do in the first leg that we did in this leg. I mean, look at the first goal. And actually,
let me ask you about that just real quick. You remember when we had the Norwich goal, the Wilshere one, that everyone was like, Arsene Wenger's Arsenal have completed football? Do you think Aubameyang on the wing, crossing to the center of the box with no Arsenal player there, getting turned in for an own goal, is the Emery completing football? Like, Emery's platonic ideal if he's completed football. I'm sorry. I'm trying to delete it. I'm sorry.
But you know what? Just before that, there was they nearly did the same thing before that. It was a cross that came in from the left, and the guy hacked it away, and he wasn't that far away from the goal. And like you said, like, we had no one in the area, and they still panicked so much that they smashed it in their own net.
It literally looked a little match fixing-ish to me, a little bit.
but it was like as Clive alluded to, I think, and I suspect, and I hope that was a specific game plan for this team.
It was.
Can I ask you a question, though, guys? So, all right, if that's a game plan for the team, Clive, I'm going to make you answer a question, then you can go off in the direction you had in mind. Okay, just real quick. Just real quick.
Real tangent.
Okay, just real quick. This is what I find so confusing about us. So it was clear that they panic when they get in the box. It does seem that the game plan was designed to take advantage of that. We had 10 corners, and we took the first 8 short. And then the first time we put it in the box, we get a goal. And the second time we put it in the box, it's a goal. What was with the short corners? If the goal is to panic them in the box, like, I guess I don't get it. Like, where's the joined up thinking there?
Okay, short corners, right? When you take a short corner, sometimes you bring 2 people over, and what you hope defending teams do, if you bring 2 people over, the minimum you should throw out there is 2. Sometimes people go 3. When you take 3 people out of the box, there's more space to run into the box. So by creating a short corner, you just should create a few running lines where you don't get blocked off.
So do you think we just took them poorly, is your point? It wasn't a bad idea, we just executed poorly?
It was a bad idea. We did execute very well. I don't mind that. As long as the ball gets in the box, I don't really mind. If we go short corner and back to the keeper, then I got a bit of an issue. Right? So
it's just highlighted, I guess, by the fact that we scored 2 goals off 2 corners that weren't short corners.
Yeah, exactly. I just think a little tangent I got in my head. I know we're talking a lot about patterns and how we're playing, and I think the issue is not so much what we do well; it's maybe a little bit of lack of variety. I think that's what we're really all saying. And what's I remember a few years ago when my son was at an academy, I watched the training a lot there. I learned a lot from those professional sessions as such, and they work a lot on shadow play, pattern play, and it's almost a little bit like, it's a bit soul destroying up to a point, because you realize how these patterns are so prescriptive. And when you grow up as a fan watching the game and watching the beautiful Wilshere goal against Norwich, that's not from shadow play. That's from a culture of playing short passes, etc., and first time passes. And then you create something which is incredible but very hard to read the shapes, but it's very very creative. And what most teams are like including Man City, they are very prescriptive in their attacking play. Very prescriptive, and it's all trained, it's all choreographed, it's all practiced on an everyday basis, and it sort of takes a little bit of the romance out of it, right? But that is how football is played at the top level, because if you know what's happening, you can make the run much quicker than your opponent. You create the half a yard you need to get that ball into an area. That's what the game is. I've heard me say before, it's a game of inches at the top level, and if you don't practice this, you're not going to win the key moments. I did it with my own team on Sunday. We did a training session and we practice our three. We play three at the back and we practice how we exit. We practice how we go and connect with the wing backs, and we practice this. And some of the players took to it and some of them didn't. And I'm saying to you, when you're under pressure, when that key moment comes and you got that pattern in your head, then you're going to revert to this moment in training. You're going to revert to it. And he's trying to explain to people it's very prescriptive and it's absolutely incredibly boring to actually train and instruct. But the results are, in that key moment, in that key game, when something happens that looks like it's made to happen and it works, it's exhilarating. But maybe it's just going back, it's the variation that we're lacking at the moment. So we're only seeing one thing.
Yeah, and maybe that's down to personnel too. I mean, we may just not have the right personnel, and especially when Ozil hadn't been playing. I mean, Tim, let's do the hard yards. Let's just get it out of the way. Okay. What did you think of Mesut Ozil?
Yeah, thought he was fine. Thought he had a decent game. Movement was very good. I think
Need to caveat that, David. Just checking.
It was great PR from Brand Ozil, and very convenient for him to play well. Very cynical move
against a bunch of farmers at the Emirates.
I'm joking. No,
I get it.
He combined pretty well with particularly with Iwobi, and I thought Iwobi's comments afterwards were quite interesting, where he said quite outrightly he wanted him to stay in the team because, and you can understand why Iwobi thinks that, because then he's like, well, then it's not down to me to deliver the final ball all the time. I can actually, I can do that, like, that creative water carrier role.
Well, did you see what he said? What I thought was so funny is he's like, I know if I make that run in behind, he's going to spot me. And I was like, then why don't you make them? What are you doing? That's why he's always mad at you, dude.
But I don't think he meant like a run in behind, like the centre half in the area. It's more, if you look at where Iwobi plays, it's very much like when I'm out, near the touchline and I want to get involved and get to the byline, that's the pass.
Eventually 9 of the Arsenal players are just going to be on the touchline anyway. Yeah. Sorry, I can't help myself. Keep going.
But yeah. And I think Mkhitaryan probably, benefited from him. And yeah, he was good. He was fine. He was more than fine. He was very good. And you would absolutely expect that, right? I mean, exactly. I understand why there's all the conversation around him. I don't think his stock has dropped that much that we're surprised that he can play well against BATE, and that's clearly not entirely what him being in and out of the team is about. It's about something else, and I think Unai Emery hinted very broadly what that something else is. Yeah. So yeah, he was great, but apart,
he should play the next 2 games, right? I mean, Southampton and Bournemouth; those games are teed up for him.
Yeah. I think him or Ramsey.
I'd play both, but that's just me. I'm crazy like that.
I think, and this is possibly. Well, it's not possibly. It is very hypocritical of me to say, as someone who, talks and writes about Arsenal as much as I do. But I feel like we've kind of got to stop analysing our performances through individuals like that. I think we're really still, and we've spoken about this a lot, right? Because we have for the last few years just had an identifiable star player. But like even with the Invincibles, it wasn't like there wasn't this much focus on Henry because he was surrounded by so many great players. But
there wasn't Twitter.
Yeah, true. but we're still very much in, and it's quite ironic because I think Emery, not in terms of what the fans say, because that's not like his business or his remit, but in terms of how the team is, he's trying to get rid of that perception of the star player, that the team is the star and all of that. But we're not on board with that yet, and we don't know if the players are either. But we're not on board with that yet, so it's still very much like, what did Mesut do? No, Mesut didn't play. What would he have done had he been on the pitch? And it's all very, what would Ramsey have done? What would Lacazette have done if we'd taken Lacazette, taken off Aubameyang instead of Lacazette? We still really analyse things very much through the prism of individuals. And
I actually have a bracelet that says WWMD, like what would Mesut do?
But like the thing I liked about Ozil's performance, and at his best he's like this, was, and this is what you get from Ozil when he plays well. It was a collective performance. He didn't like, I think while he's not been playing, everyone's just assumed that had he been playing, he'd have been like playing defence splitting through balls every 2 minutes. But actually what Mesut does at his best is he is that kind of collective player. He is the guy who'll run over to Iwobi's wing for 5 minutes and kind of riff with him, and run over to Mkhitaryan's wing for 10 minutes and keep the ball moving, and move into space and create space, and that's what he did. And so it's kind of ironic that there's all of this like star attention around him, because he's not. He might be a virtuoso personality from what we can glean at the moment, but at his best, he's not a virtuoso player. He is an unselfish, perceptive team player, and that's what he was on Thursday. And if he can continue to do that on the pitch and when he trains and blah blah blah, then we haven't got a problem, frankly.
And if I may sort of introduce my humble opinion on the matter, I think what Mesut was doing is something that Ramsey does. It's something we don't have other players in the team that does. It was arriving in the box for what I would call the second phase of attacking play, or second ball. He had the volley that just went over. He had the missed kick wide open at the corner of the 6-yard box that went straight back, remember, to the top of the box for a long shot from someone. I can't remember who fouled that up. He had a couple of missed moments, but it was second phase of play type balls where we haven't had someone. We have one guy that's usually in the box and no one else that wants to arrive there. And I think he was arriving into the box to extend attacking play. If we've had one problem this season with our attack, I think it is that we have too many good attacking moves that don't ever actually turn into a shot. Our shot stats are way down. And I don't think it's necessarily that we're not getting the ball into advanced positions. It's that we're wasting a lot of good advanced positions. And I think Mesut Ozil helps convert good advanced positions into scoring opportunities better. And so it's not just he plays the defense splitting through ball that finds a runner in perfect stride to slot it home. I just think he extends attacking moves, and he makes good choices that lead to those moves resulting in good shots. I mean, a great example of how not to do that is Granit Xhaka, who had the shoot-on-sight policy, right, and was firing them into Rosette. I mean, granted, he had one really nice shot, to be fair. But, those low percent shots, maybe my favorite shot of the game was it Lichtsteiner with the full volley from 30 yards out?
Yeah.
I mean, that was a classic moment. But so I do think that Mesut gives us that. I think that Ramsey gives us that. And that's why I think one of those two has to be in the team. Clive, I want to ask you about Granit Xhaka, because I know that early on in the game you thought he was pretty good. I actually thought as the game wore on, he kind of had a bad game, and yet he had 2 assists because he delivered the good corners. So, all's well that ends well. But I think in these kinds of games, what I'm learning is against the teams that want to sit deep and defend, you don't need both of Guendouzi and Xhaka. Because, what I noticed is they'd pick up the ball in the middle of the pitch and no one's there. So they go a little further forward, and they go a little further forward, and there's no one stopping them. You know what I mean? So you don't need a guy playing the intermediate value pass up the pitch because there's no one contesting midfield. I just wonder if Xhaka is not necessary or feels redundant in a game where he doesn't have to bypass that first line of defense.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. It's all about offensive balance, isn't it, Elliot? I mean, you're a coach, right? This game is...
I am, yes, professionally.
You need this game for your life. Literally, this doesn't work out, you're in trouble. You've lost one of your routes to the Champions League. This is a big issue for Emery, and that may have. I heard James say earlier on today that may have been the reason for his euphoric celebrations on the sideline. Right, so I look at it. I saw the team. I thought, yeah, that's fine. We're playing 1+1. We're not playing two strikers. We're playing 1+1. So Elliot, that explains why we're getting late arrivals in the box, because we're not playing two forwards. They're already there. Right, so that's the big difference in the balance that we played with. We had more creative midfielders creating slightly more variation against a team that was rubbish, and looking forward to them at Donald's. Right, so that's basically what the game was. I think in centre midfield, I understand why he does it. When the game develops and they drop into their box and we clear the one off the line, and they recognise that they're in a bit of trouble and they really try to hold on to what they have, then you look at what we have on the pitch and you think that's too many players that want to play behind the ball. So what we have to do is then people like, for example, Guendouzi has to get himself slightly further forward for the set off of an Ozil or Aubameyang, who can get the ball to feet and set him for a shot quite close to goal. So again, he needs to sort of feel the game and recognise that potentially I don't need to be here. Xhaka's got the back door shut. He's now playing the passes out to the wings. He's moving us forward. I can sit right in front of him, a la the year when we had Xhaka and Ramsey was literally pressing people back from a position in centre midfield starting, but really starting in front of Xhaka in almost like a straight line, right? So, and he just needs to develop that, and I think that would answer your angst for more late arrivals into the box against terrible teams. It's all about the teams that you're playing against and what they're offering you on the day. I'm not wed to either one. I just think we have to adapt to the game a little bit more and have players that are adaptable to the game, and maybe not be so cautious. But one away goal, we have to score 3, right? So that's what the coach is thinking. We're thinking as fans, they're rubbish. We're going to beat these easy. But when it's your job on the line, you do sort of make sure you have the bases covered, right? That probably explains the selection and how they played, particularly in the early parts of the game.
Yeah. Well, so let's do this. Let's take a break, because when we come back, I want to sort of summarize this tie, where we are right now, maybe take stock of where we are before things get really, really hectic. We'll look forward to the Rennes tie, maybe take 45 minutes to an hour to laugh about Chelsea getting a transfer ban, and then another 45 minutes to an hour being aggravated that it's probably going to get overturned. But we can figure that out when we come to it. So we're going to take a break. Some of you will hear about shaving. All of you will hear about sexiness, getting sexy. In fact, I am off for a weekend getaway with my wife to celebrate Valentine's Day a day late. And also, I guess technically tomorrow is the anniversary of our engagement. So we'll be celebrating that. And I have picked out a few really nice sexy lingerie items for the weekend. I haven't decided which I'm going to wear yet, but I'll figure that out tonight. In any event, we'll take a break. We'll come back after you wash your mouth out with detergent, and we'll talk to you more in a moment. Stay with us. Okay, everyone, it's time to tell you about our friends at Enclosed Lingerie. You can find them online at The Enclosed, ENCLOSED.com. Enclosed Lingerie is a Lingerie of the Month club. That's right, just like a Beer of the Month club, only better, because it's a high-end luxury lingerie gift for you and your partner that's going to enhance the intimacy in your relationship. Right now, if you put in Arsenal at checkout, they're going to give you $35 off any gift from Enclosed Lingerie. So you're going to want to go to theenclosed.com and sign up now. What better way to celebrate the romance in your relationship than celebrating with a gift from The Enclosed? And the gifts keep coming every month. So while it can be difficult to remember to keep the romance, to keep the intimacy in your relationship, The Enclosed has your back. Every month you're going to get that high-end luxury lingerie gift, and it's going to remind you of the importance of romance in your relationship. So do it now. Go to theenclosed.com. There is a perfect fit guarantee, so you never have to worry about the fit. It's beautiful high-end luxury lingerie. Just go to theenclosed.com and enter promo code ARSENAL for $35 off at checkout. Do it now. Okay, we're back, and hopefully that got the picture of me wearing lingerie out of your mind, although there I just went and did it again. Okay, Tim.
Yes.
Sorry to go right to you after that. 180 minutes against BATE, no goals from open play. Just a stick to beat the manager with, or something to be upset about?
I wouldn't say something to be upset about. Probably something to be a bit concerned about. I wrote something. Are we still in this week technically? Yeah, let's say this week. I wrote something this week about like how few shots on goal Arsenal take. 12th in the Premier League for shots at the moment. Been outshot in more than half of our Premier League games so far, and which is weird when you look at the amount of goals we've scored. So what that tells you, I think, is that, and it's an adaptation for us as Arsenal fans, because we've been used to a fairly improv style of attack, which at its best has been super exciting. The way Emery plays football and has always played football with his teams is far more structured in terms of attack. So it's more deliberate, and it means that for better and for worse, Arsenal leave less to chance when they go forward. And therefore, and I think that's a little bit why you see as well that Arsenal don't really go for teams that often when they're a goal or two up. They do tend to not quite sit in, but that tends to be enough. Like Arsenal kind of try to do the bare minimum in terms of attacking. Yeah, we can all relate to that. So like I don't think Arsenal really has like a real license to express themselves in attack, and that sounds like a real dig, and it's not really, because as Clive alluded to earlier, it's the same under Guardiola. I don't know if you heard Henry had a little anecdote about that. He said that when he was at Barca, he was always told, stay on the left, stay on the left, stay on the left. But then Barca had a counter and he saw loads of space on the right. So he ran over to the right and he scored, and he got dropped for doing that because he didn't follow instruction. He followed his instincts, and he said he was left out of the next two games. Pep had a go at him for it. So, that's a very like structured, or, I think the way Pep does it is he splits the attacking half of the pitch into like 9 zones, and effectively he's like, within your 2 or 3 zones, kind of move where you like within that small space and follow your instincts if you must, but outside of that zone, no, you do what you're told. And I think Emery is not exactly the same but similar. It's a structured approach, right? And so once we went 3-0 up, I do think there's this sense. It's not quite shutting up shop. It's right, the job's done now, and if we just observe the basics for the next half an hour, then the job's done, and that's the end of it. So I think the flaws of that approach do worry me in terms of there not being enough jeopardy and us not stressing defenders enough. And part of that is some of the players we have. We don't have a lot of dribblers or anything like that. We have some quite similar types of player, and part of it, I think, is caution, but not the type of caution that people accuse Emery of, which is playing 3 DMs, even though none of them are actually DMs.
Hell, we play between 4 and 5 defenders, and none of them are defenders. So there you go.
Well, yeah, exactly. And so it's not that type of caution. It's just it's a very like straightforward approach. But I do think there are flaws in that, because I do think it means we lack variety. I think it does mean that we lack inspiration. So on a day where perhaps things aren't going our way, like say West Ham away, for example, where it's just not really going our way, and nobody really has the kind of the license or the inspiration to take it by the scruff of the neck and go, right, no, I'm doing this now. I'm going to do something about this. So, it's. I think it's something to be a little bit concerned about. But it's it's one of those things, when it works like it did, it's kind of fine. But what worries me is when it doesn't. What's our fallback when it doesn't? Yeah.
You know what? You know what, Tim?
Clive.
I think you nailed this earlier. Actually, I think it's down to us and how we adapt to what's happening in front of us. I think we have to adapt to the changing ways of Arsenal playing. and accept it a little bit more. I did a big Twitter thread on one of my train threads this week after watching the Bayern game versus Liverpool, and to think that Bayern Munich would go to Liverpool and play like how they played and how they managed Liverpool, how they managed the fact that Liverpool is heavy metal team that want to tear into you every time you make a mistake, how they kept possession, how they controlled momentum of the game, how they just moved the ball into areas just to keep it, just to quieten them down. And eventually they started to prick their confidence. And eventually Liverpool were forced to rush because they didn't have the ball when they wanted it. And that means their accuracy went. And I just looked at that game and I thought to myself, I've learned something there about every game can't be the same. You have to adjust to what a team that may actually be better than you in certain particular facets. And we have to adjust and have the humility to adjust, to say, well, you know what, they're faster than us up front. So if I give them green grass, they're going to run into it. And you know what, if I do give the ball away in centre mid, they're going to transition on us really, really quickly and we will not be able to recover back into our holes. And I just thought, for me, to see a team actually approach a game with preparation is exactly what I've been calling for the last 5 years.
To be fair, we all have, and now that we're getting it, we're not so sure about it.
Well, that's what I'm saying earlier. Exactly, we all have. We've all sat there and said, it'd be great to prepare, it'd be great to have a coach that prepares different ways of playing, be tactically flexible. But when it comes down to it, when the shit hits the fan and teams like Man United and Chelsea are right on the same points as us, what we do is we say, well, why isn't he playing? Why isn't he playing? Why isn't he playing? And we would defer back to what we've been conditioned towards. And I think the message I sort of gave out was, we've got to be open to different things. We've got to be open to learning. We've got to be open. We may not like the guy, love him, like what he's doing, but be open to it and then see if we can try to understand why. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, then you know what, the results will take care of itself, and that will take care of his employment.
I'll give you the counsel for the defense there, harkening back to our attempted mock trial episode over on Patreon, which people were very nice about, even if it wasn't deserved. What I would say is, I think you're seeing the fruits of that approach, Clive, in the big games. I think this season, for the most part, maybe with the exception of City and Liverpool away, which is kind of understandable because we're just not in their class quality-wise. Yeah. We saw what happened to Chelsea. But otherwise in the big games, I think we've been good. And I think we've seen that Emery's flexibility, his tactical understanding of approaching big games, his way of nullifying teams from doing what they excel at has been impressive. And I think where Emery seems to thrive is nullification and reaction. In other words, setting us up to nullify the strength of a team and react in a way that takes advantage of that. I thought you saw that clearly in the Spurs and Chelsea games that we won. The problem is where I think he struggles because he doesn't have a prime directive, a primary style that's front-footed. I think we're worse against weaker teams. And the problem with that is if you want to win the league, certainly, and be a top four team, you look at Arsene Wenger. If Arsene Wenger hung his hat on anything in the later years of his career at Arsenal, he hung his hat on butchering the weaker teams and putting a lot of goals past them. And that's how we got top. Yeah, sure. You want to come back on that?
And so you're looking at it really, really well. So it's in possession, out possession. In those top games, the possession is quite equal. And so what you do in possession and how you transition is really important. And we have got not a bad transition team. Go back to the early part of the year, those length of the pitch goals. He's obviously been coaching that. And what Wenger teams have always been very good at, we've built a team in possession, known as the worst off-the-ball team in the league. But in possession, oh my God, we're beautiful. So when we're playing the flat-track bully teams, they're sitting back in. Well, let's all sit there. Let's get my hot dog. Let me sit down and get me nachos and watch Mesut Ozil stroke the ball square, around the horseshoe, blah, blah, blah. Sixpence, Giroud, Ramsey, Sanchez, by the way, goal. Right? That's what we've been watching. When we haven't got the ball, there you go, lads, run up the pitch and run past our old defenders. That's what we've been watching. So what we have now is a bit more of a two-way team. But actually, the players that we need against the flat-track bullies are the ones he's either in dispute with or are leaving. Right? So that's the issue. And that's when we want to revert back to the Ozils, because we know when it's not a two-way game, he has the quality to execute against a team that doesn't want to play us. The problem is, and this is why he won't play at Spurs, when it is a two-way game, we're playing with 10 men. And the Ozil fans need to recognise this. We've got 5-6 years of it. We are playing with 10 men when we need to play a team that's as good as us on the ball. And that's what he's not prepared to accept. He's definitely not prepared to accept it if someone's not training or available or fit. He's not prepared to trust a guy because he doesn't play at the quite level of intensity. And even in this game, if we're brutally honest, it wasn't full flowing. Because this guy can move, he can run. He wasn't intense. Maybe didn't need to be. Not every game is like that. He still looked a little bit weak to me. He's got a way to go to get to the levels that we know he possesses. He's still got magic feet, but he has got a way to go. He's nowhere near it, mate. He's nowhere near where he could be.
I guess it's funny, Clive. Like I could get so much more on board with the Emery era if he did everything the same way he's been doing it for the big games and the tougher teams and the bigger teams, and against the minnows, just like threw out all our best attacking players on the pitch and said, "Go get them." You know what I mean? Like I almost feel like, and I get it. There has to be structure, and even weaker teams in the Premier League can hurt you now. But I just feel like maybe he kind of has to figure out, when you're managing a mid-table Spanish team that's trying to get top four, and maybe there's only 3 other teams that are better than you in the league, like you can kind of be cautious and hope to nick wins. But like in the Premier League, you're better losing than drawing. I mean, go for a win at 1-1, and if you lose, that's fine. Like 3 points are so important. There's so many articles being written by the analytics community about always go for the win. I know it sounds obvious. Oh, really? Try to win the game. But what I mean is that like at 1-1, you're better off losing trying to get to 2-1, is what they're basically saying. So I just think we could use a little bit of that. And we'll see, because coming up we have Southampton and Bournemouth. We need those 6 points because it's Spurs and United after that. Tim, before we move on and just talk about what's coming up ahead to finish up, 2 questions for you. One, we don't have Lacazette for either leg of Rennes. UEFA have announced that his ban will keep him out of that entire tie, which means Aubameyang is going to be the goal scorer up front. So my questions for you: one, do you have any concern that maybe his form is worrying, that he's dropped a level? And if so, might we see Emery use Lacazette in the league and Aubameyang in the Europa League to try to freshen him up?
So I haven't really noticed a big drop in Aubameyang, but I mean he's quite a low involvement player anyway. So to be 100% honest with you, in the absolute like technical sense, I never really think Aubameyang plays well.
Sure, but like that little chip effort, Tim, that he made, didn't that sort of seem like a not Aubameyang kind of like a confidence finish? You know what I mean? It seemed kind of half-hearted to me.
I've seen quite a few of them this season. To be honest, I don't think like in the pure like on the ball technical sense he ever really plays well. It's just he's constantly a goal threat, and he still was in this game. Created the first goal. He got into that position for that chance and missed it, which we see that plenty, but he gets those positions so often. I do think that we might see that. Yes, we might, because obviously we're on really thin ice now. Lacazette's out of both games against Rennes, because what would we do if we lost the Aubameyang for either of those? Like playing Ketia, we're into
Socrates
like
center forward, towering header. Yeah.
We're into using someone as a false 9 territory there, I think. So I do think that he probably nominally prefers to play with one striker. It's just that he's got 2 really good ones who often fit together very well, and that's where the strength in the team is. But I think in Emery's ideal world, he has a lone striker with a couple of inside forwards outside of him. So and that could open the door a little bit more for Ozil for these games, for example, because without Lacazette there, it made the choice to bring Ozil into this game even easier than it already was. So I think we could see that, and I think now he's got Denis Suarez in there. There's he can keep that shape.
What is a Denis Suarez? What is that? What does that thing do? What is that thing?
So he's a rotation option with Iwobi and Mkhitaryan, as far as I can see. Like he does pretty much the same thing as those two, and probably the shame really is that we got Suarez the instant Mkhitaryan got fit, where we probably could have used him in December and early January when Mkhitaryan wasn't around. But I mean that tells you that acquisition tells you, I think, how Emery really wants to play. He really wants those inside forwards in the half spaces, and now he's got 3 players, whereas a few weeks ago he only had 1 that could do it. So but potentially he can bring that 4-2-3-1 back that seems to be his preferred style when he's got the players, and he can give Suarez some game time, or he can just keep him on the bench and bring him on, and it means we make a substitution that doesn't change our formation per se. But the short answer to your question, I think we'll see probably Lacazette start and Aubameyang on the bench for maybe some of these games around those Europa League ties.
Yeah, I guess, it's funny, Tim, because I'm seeing some chatter now that we might sell Lacazette in the summer, and this is where I think I don't really understand how people think we're going to build a squad, and why I think the project ahead for Emery and for the Raúls of the world are going to be really tough. Because let's say you think we have to sell Lacazette because he's someone we can still get money for, and we can go out and address other needs. Well, that leaves you with just Aubameyang, who's on the wrong side of the aging curve, and then Nketiah, we have absolutely no idea what to expect from him. It might be great, we don't know. And so if you go out and you sell Lacazette, well, you do need another striker. Yeah. And whatever you get from Lacazette, strikers are super expensive. So even buying another backup striker for cheap is going to use up 75% of what you get for Lacazette. So what do you gain from that?
And I completely agree. And it might be a slightly different story because we're probably going to have to make some more painful decisions. We're making some painful decisions. We're probably going to have to make a few more of them because, like you say, how we raise money from this squad is not straightforward. And so, a player like Granit Xhaka might be vulnerable, for example, because the manager clearly really likes Guendouzi, and he might think, well, in an ideal world, I'd keep him, but if I've got to raise 40 million pounds, 30 million pounds, or whatever, then maybe I've got to trust what I've got in midfield. But you're right with Lacazette. If Danny Welbeck's contract wasn't up, maybe it's a different conversation. Maybe then you can say, well, we've got Welbeck as well, and again, in an ideal world, you have Aubameyang and Lacazette and Welbeck. But if we got to make space somewhere, then perhaps that's where it is. But with Welbeck going, no, I completely agree. It makes no sense. I think Lacazette's one of the ones we've got to look at tying down. Actually, 2 years gone.
For better and worse, by the way, because I don't think he's at the level of what an Arsenal first choice. I mean, it's kind of like the Giroud thing. I love Lacazette. I think he's very, very good. I don't quite think he's what I'd want to be our star striker, if you follow what I'm saying. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He's another one, like I said about Xhaka earlier in the season. I think, definitely like a top 4 striker. But Arsenal need to get back in the top 4 before they can be choosy about, like someone like Kieran Gibbs. I was always like, if you want to finish 4th, Kieran Gibbs is fine, but he's not the player that pushes you on a level. And hopefully in a couple of years, we'll be back in the top 4 for, back in the Champions League for a couple of years. Then we can be a bit more picky about some of those players. But we're probably not there yet. Clive, you want to chime in on that, on the Lacazette Aubameyang situation in general?
Yeah, I think look, they don't quite balance off, do they? Let's be honest, right? They're not flexible enough. They're both centre forwards. They both want to be free forwards. I think one's a Firmino type and one's a go to the space type. Right?
The only thing I would say, I hate to push back so early on in your articulate delivery, but I think by calling Lacazette a Firmino type, we maybe overplay his link-up play, which I think he can do better than Aubameyang, but I still don't think it's his... He's not Firmino in that respect. You know what I mean?
Well, if you watch Firmino of late, he's not in great form, and there are doubts. There are doubts about him, and they are playing Salah a lot more as centre forward. So it's just to describe the player, Elliot, rather than to describe the quality. Okay,
fine. I won't contribute to the podcast.
So, and I think Lacazette's the one. I agree with him. I think he's the one, and so I don't see. And I think he's the one that you can build around more easily. I think if you were to get to your vision, Elliot. I know you have a vision of having two wide men. I think Lacazette suits that a lot more. I think he offers glue down the middle. I think he works back. I think he negates the need for a 10 because he does like a 9.5, 10 type role anyway. But he's there in the box. He's the box striker. But if you've got two forwards, if you're surrounding him with two sprinting wide men that want to go inside like Liverpool had last season and like City have today, and they've got 3 or 4 of them, they've got different styles, I think then you see a different forward because he has a defined role. And I think a lot of that is we're analysing the team, actually. And I think you got me thinking more about our roles. When we're discussing these players a lot, we have different views on their roles in the team. And when I mentioned Firmino, you knew immediately what I meant, right? Because their role is defined, right? So I think I look at some of the things that are happening around us with some of the Spurs players, introducing players which I think are very, very average. But when they're introduced, like an Oliver Skip, I mean, crikey, mate, he is so average, untrue. But he's been given a role. Harry Winks, he plays one position only, in front of the back four. There's your job. There's your role. When we introduce our players into the team, we introduce them in multiple positions, and then we criticise them based on either.
To be fair, they all get introduced as a wing back.
Yeah, or left midfield or left wing. You know what I mean? So we criticise them on what they're not because we have hopes for that position versus who they are. If we can simplify that and introduce a young player into his primary position and then build him rather than build him very, very quickly by moving him around and then potentially losing his confidence and losing his definition. And I think we have a problem with our offensive balance and definition. Our players are good, but because we've got so many different systems and not quite balanced, and we're covering for lack of wingers, I think we then debate whether we're one striker team, two striker team, and then you will say, Elliot, quite rightly, why hasn't Emery defined us yet? Right, and I think a lot of that is down to the quality of players, the balance of players, and I just feel he's trying to do the very best with what he has, and then come the summer, then I think we can see the shape that you want to see.
I mean, look, we've got $45 million to spend. We could have a whole new squad by the end of the summer. I'm kidding. It's a joke. That was a joke. Okay, look, it's Rennes in the next round. I mean, Tim, I don't think any of us are going to pretend to be experts on Rennes. Do you have any opinion of this draw?
No, not really. It's look, it's a really good chance to go through. Basically, we should be going through. We've got the second leg at home now, which I think is always slightly better. We should absolutely be going through and be looking at going to the quarterfinal. My rationale was very much that I wanted to play Chelsea because I think we're going to probably have to beat them to win it. And
even between United and Spurs, though, you wouldn't have wanted to put that off maybe one more round because of that?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe it's just my anxiety talking, and
they're not very good. Like at the beginning of the season, I would have said they're the main obstacle, but the way things are going with Sarri and them right now, I mean, you could make an argument that there are teams that pose a bigger threat.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'd have taken it as a draw beforehand. It's a good chance to go through. And I don't know enough about the team except for the fact they have Hatem Ben Arfa, and Hatem Ben Arfa has history with Unai Emery.
Wants to murder Unai Emery, yes.
and no other managers. He's been an angel at all his other clubs with all his other managers. Exactly. It's obviously a massive flaw in Unai Emery's management that he fell out with Ben Arfa out of all of his coaches. So
same with Neymar, who's been notoriously easy to deal with. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like he wasn't getting coaches sacked in Brazil when he was 17 years old. That didn't happen. So we'll probably hear a lot about that in lieu of anything else, to be honest. But it's a very Europa League draw, isn't it? Really, it's not. I don't ever remember Rennes being in the Champions League, but they're beatable, and we need and want to win this competition. So bring it on.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you something too. I think I'm going to tell you lots of things. There is revisionism that goes on when we look back at the past. We were very, very, very bad last season. And the second half of last season, we were fucking terrible. We lost away at Brighton in one of the worst games I've ever seen Arsenal play. And it looked like the team was downing tools. We lost, was it at home to Ostersunds or Drew or whatever, when we wound up going through? Östersund. I mean, that's a lower tier team than BATE, okay? We still wound up getting up enough gears to cruise through, including past AC Milan, to get to Atleti, who we probably should have beaten last year. So as bad as we were domestically last season, and as bad as we looked against Östersund, we looked bad in that tie, really bad, both legs. We still cruised to the semifinal of this competition. So I am willing to acknowledge that we have been terrible lately. I think we played awful football. The Huddersfield game was matched in its terribleness only by BATE away. And yet, as we saw last season, totally possible for this team to continue to progress in this tournament. So I don't think there's any need to panic. And that leaves us 5 minutes. I don't want to go more than 5 minutes, Clive, just to touch on it quickly. Jonathan Liew,
Oh, yeah.
wrote an article about sort of the joy going out of Arsenal and the Kroenke era at Arsenal making it sort of a joyless place. And, you know, I sometimes think these things can wander into narratives that don't necessarily align with everyone's experience and maybe reflects a cross-section of the fan experience. But I think it's worth touching on because you and Tim both reacted to it on social media. There's been a lot of reaction to it generally. Wanted to get your quick thoughts again, you know, couple minutes just on the article and how it resonated with you.
Yeah, you know what? I haven't read it completely fully. When I saw it,
Super.
and I saw,
Couldn't you just said I read it 4 times like Paul would have?
Yeah, well, you know, I did read it. I skimmed it, but the reason why I skimmed it, I was so excited to read it, and to read some of the headlines and the key lines. I tweeted it out almost before I finished it because, for me, that encapsulates what football's all about. And every one of us started supporting this club because of how we felt about something, somebody, or the badge, the club, or somebody in our family. It's all based on emotion. When we sit here and do this, I never forget, it's always about how we feel about something. We can talk about stats, we can talk about all of this, which is all part of that picture. When it comes down, it's a feeling that got us in there. It's a feeling that's going to keep us attached to the club and keep us in that stadium. And when I saw this, I thought, this is brilliant. Someone's thinking like how an Arsenal fan is thinking. He's thinking about the fact that we are just not as exciting, and we as a fan group don't feel as emotional about this team as we used to. I'll give you another little story. This won't take 5 minutes, mate. I'm sorry, but I met Tim once. We went on a podcast for another podcast, and we sat in a studio and we spoke about Riyad Mahrez potentially signing for Arsenal, and we both said yes, get him. And the reason why we said it was we know what a player like that would do for the stands. When a player like that gets to football, everyone's back on board because we're excited. So we talked about these players, and you know what I feel about them, right? In general, but it doesn't matter what I feel about them. They're our players, and I like them because we need to get with them to get where we need to get to. But I think the quality is low. I think the excitement's low, and the emotion around the club is low, and my biggest fear is irrelevancy. That's my biggest fear. There are clubs around us that are becoming more relevant than us because they're doing more right things. So don't look backwards at these players that got us in this situation. Try to look forwards to the day when you can feel better about this club again, because that's my worry. There's too many red seats, too many people dead from the neck up because they're not feeling it. And I think this guy captured it. He captured an angle on it, and it's a subject I think we should talk a lot more about, because this is what we all are in the end. We're fans, and it's about how we feel.
Yep, I agree with that. I mean, the headline is "Joyless and Bloodless, Stan Kroenke's Arsenal has lost sight of its basic purpose." And the central thesis, is that the job of a football club isn't to just win. I mean, it is, of course, but it's to make you feel strongly, and that this has kind of become a bland corporate experience, something that distinguishes the club from its ring binder at the company's house. There are a lot of good one-liners in there, but I think that the general point is about making you feel. I don't know that I was nodding along the whole time I read it, only because I do feel strongly about the club still, but I can admit that from an identity standpoint, it is hard to identify what Arsenal means and what Arsenal is as a club, and that even in the early part of Arsenal's second decade, maybe not towards the last few seasons, but certainly, the 07 team, the 13-14 team, I think, was it 10-11, there was an identity that I think was strongly felt from style to player to manager. Tim, I mean, as far as that article, do you think, did it strike a nerve with you, or do you think it overstates the degree of ennui at the club?
No, I think it struck a chord. So I think there are two things going on here. There's the kind of off-pitch and on-pitch element to this. As you rightly said, on the pitch, and it won't surprise you to hear, I've written about something about this for next week. Kind of called it a comms gap that Arsenal have got at the moment, and that's because they've lost Arsene Wenger. Who, no matter what you thought of him or what you thought of what he was doing, he stood for something. He stood for something we could identify,
and he could
was
communicate
able to
it, articulate. Yeah,
exactly.
Yep. Sorry.
Yeah, and and so I was thinking there with what you were saying, the whole like Project Youth thing. Nobody at Arsenal ever once used the label Project Youth. That was not Arsenal's invention. It was the fans that gave it that name, and the reason they gave it that name was because it was so obvious what we were doing, and it was so clearly communicated that we did the branding ourselves. That I mean, I've never worked in marketing, but that's branding gold. When your audience brands something for you, that tells you that you've got something that people understand. And whether they agreed with Project Youth or not, that's what we had, and we knew it. And at the moment, what we've got is a bit of a two-tiered problem. So we've lost Arsene Wenger, who's a good communicator, and Lord knows I watched him save enough AGMs to know that he's a very good communicator, and people like him, and he has an aura. We've lost Ivan Gazidis, who was the more corporate side of that, very silver-tongued, very slick. Again, that doesn't mean that everything he said was true, but he was able to deliver a message. And I've been in a room with Ivan Gazidis many times, and his gift is not in his words, it's in his delivery. He, even when you are cynical as fuck and you suspect him, he still makes you feel calm. He brings your blood pressure down. And we've lost these two big figures, right? And we haven't got anyone who's jumped into that comms gap yet. And we've got a manager who's still wrestling with the language a little bit. And then the one thing from this era we thought we could identify was Sven Mislintat. We thought, right, okay, this makes sense. I know what he did at Dortmund, and Arsenal are kind of a similar club to Dortmund, so he's probably going to do here what he did there. And oh look, we've bought this guy called Torreira and this guy called Guendouzi, who I've never heard of, and oh look, they're pretty good. Right, this is the path Arsenal are taking, and now we've lost him. It's a bit like, so what path are we taking? And we can't really see it on the pitch. We can't really see it behind the scenes. And some of this is just transition. And with a comms gap, you suck in speculation. So stuff like Ramsey, stuff like Ozil, stuff like Mislintat, stuff like did we want Arteta or did we want Emery? None of this stuff.
Don't you, Tim?
Yeah, exactly. You start speculating, and that's what's happening at the moment. And so there's all of this, which I think eventually will come out in the wash, because we're in a big transition and change. I'll say 100 times, it's difficult, it's ugly, and it's boring, frankly. And that's why I'm not hugely worried about the whole Ozil thing and the Ramsey thing, because I always thought that would happen, and I kind of think it needs to happen. Change is ugly and horrible, and ugly and horrible things have to happen. The second tier of this is much simpler. Kind of the reason that Arsenal have like a bit of a comms gap is it comes from the ownership, right? And the reason that the comms from the ownership is so bad is because everybody knows the truth, but they can't say it, which is that to the Cronkies, we are just another little turned over page in their portfolio, and they don't really care about Arsenal. And, Josh Kroenke kind of getting in a room with Jeremy Wilson once a year to say we want to win the Champions League, it doesn't fool anyone, because we can see that they don't care about that. We can see that they're not going to try and push the club there. And so the on the pitch thing, I think, is a bit of a comms issue, which we can sort out in time. The ownership issue, not so much, because everyone knows the truth, but they can't say the truth. The Cronkies can't and won't come out and say, yeah, do you know what? We don't we're not hugely invested. As long as Arsenal stay in the top 6, we're all right. And that's a problem because they can't say it. We all know it, but we keep looking at them saying, say something that inspires.
Say something else that we like.
Yeah,
say something we want to hear.
They can't because it's not true, and we all recognise that. So we're in this complete deadlock cycle with the ownership, and that's a bigger problem that we can't solve until either the ownership changes what it's doing or the ownership changes, and neither of those things are very likely either.
Yeah,
that's driving the emotion away, isn't it, Tim? Because people know this, and so when you know this, you sort of settle for your fate. And I think the only caveat I'll add to that is this is going to be the first summer window where Kroenke is the sole owner. If he doesn't deliver this summer, or the club doesn't deliver this summer, and we don't speculate to accumulate going forward, then we know 1,000% this is what we are. And we are hoping for individual talent, either at the manager level or the playing level, to come into our club to take us somewhere else, because it's not going to come from investment or a new strategy and a new leadership thought process. It's just going to come from, we better get lucky and find a Gareth Bale type player in our club. That's what we're looking for at the moment. And
how could that fail? How could that strategy fail? That seems
good luck with that.
Nailed on.
There's no secrets out there in the world of football anymore. That's for sure. So good luck with that. So we'll see how we go.
I just want to end this by saying, by the way, that the 07-08 Arsenal team was my favorite of the last, since the Invincibles. And I remember Alex Hleb fairly clearly as being a player that divided opinion even then in a really good team, returning as a conquering hero to the Emirates.
Don't mess with Clive with Tim's on this podcast.
Little weird. Well, I think Tim would agree with me. Tim, it's weird, isn't it? It's the reception is weird. The players that we take back to our bosom and the ones that we don't, I still don't know the rules. I don't get the rules. I had someone tell me the other day that Cesc will never be an Arsenal legend and can't be loved because he went to Chelsea, and the person's handle on Twitter was Giroudiology or something. And I'm like, he literally plays for Chelsea. like, am I going crazy? Yeah. So, I mean, am I nuts? Like, is it a little weird and sometimes arbitrary about who we... I mean, is it basically that as long as they fail after they leave us, we love them?
It's a bit of that. Don't go and play for a rival. And, if it's 11 years since he left, and that's a lot of water under the bridge. A lot of memories fade. And a lot of people, honestly, just default to... it was 11 years ago. Things were better then.
Exactly that.
And
we used to feel things then, didn't we, Tim?
Yeah, okay. But he pushed to leave a team that could have won things. I mean, if you want to be mad at people, be mad at Matthew Flamini, who left us on a free. Be mad at Alex Hleb, who left us when we were building something special. Be mad at Adebayor, who had a 30-goal season and then thought he was too big for the club and left for Manchester City. Be mad at those guys.
People are mad at him.
Well, yeah, fair point. But, like the funny thing is, to all the people that are mad at Cesc, like Cesc left a club that was in decline and not going anywhere anytime soon, and really helped expedite the start of a renewal process that involved getting Ozil and getting Alexis and moving off in another direction. But like that 07-08 team was special. The Rosicky injury hurt us, the Eduardo injury hurt us, but Adebayor, Flamini, and Hleb fucking off right after or shortly after. We don't need to go over the 07-08 team. I don't know why I'm doing. We'll do a Patreon pod on the team that could have been of 07-08. But I just think it's funny that Hleb returns as a conquering hero. That's all.
Yeah, it's just people don't remember because, ironically enough, they didn't really care about him enough when he was actually here. He wasn't hugely popular, but then he kind of went off abroad, came back to Birmingham. There's no the Cesc thing. There's a little bit more to it.
Yeah, I know, and I know all the reasons, and I know all the arguments. Yep.
Yeah, and there was more of an emotional attachment, and Hleb, he got like a nice round of applause when he came on, which I kind of think is fine. I just think it's because it was a long time ago, and people always assume that a long time ago means better. Simple as that. Like when we went to Forest in the League Cup a couple of years ago, and everyone just kept constantly singing for Bentner, and it's because they were interested in the meme rather than the actual player we had. Effectively, it's just, it is what it is. People just think that the past was better.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll leave it there with the past being better, because that seems like an upbeat final thought. Tim's on Twitter at Stillberto. Thanks, Tim.
My pleasure.
Clive's on Twitter at ClivePAFC. Thank you, Clive.
Thank you very much.
Give us a 5-star review. And of course, write nasty things about Paul. For God's sake, it's a long overdue thing. Do it. Next week, mailbag on Patreon. I think it's going to be a Would You Rather mailbag. So like the Would You Rather episode, but crowdsourced from you. Join us on Discord for the chat. It's a lot of fun. I think you'll like it. And if you don't want to do any of that, we still love you. We're just thrilled that you consider us worth listening to, and we take that seriously, even though it doesn't always sound like it, but we do, and we love you, and we appreciate you. So, it's back to the Premier League at the weekend. Hassan Huddle got the best of us. I probably butchered his name, but move on. In his first match in charge, where we lost at Southampton, but the good news is they're rubbish on the road, and we're pretty good at home. So, big win incoming, which means we will talk to you after Arsenal 10, Southampton 0.